I am Jim Collison, live from the Gallup studios here in Omaha, Nebraska, as well as our office in Sydney, Australia. This is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on May 14th, 2019. Called to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions during this live webcast, we do have a chat room. It's available for you, right? There's a link to it right below the main video window. It'll take you to a YouTube page. There's a chat function there. Just pop that thing out and join us in the chat room. You can ask your questions live. If you have questions after the fact, we'd love to have you send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. And really, that email address is good for just about any questions that you might have. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center, just gallupstrengthscenter.com for all your CliftonStrengths coaching resources and training needs. You can also catch the video in both streaming and downloadable audio. We call that podcasting. All the cool kids are doing it. You'll want to join us as well. A great way to recapture that time on a train, in a plane, in a car, those kinds of things. If you're not doing it yet, all the instructions and everything you need to know to get it done is on our coaches blog. Head out to coaching.gallup.com. Claire Carteret is our host today. Claire works as a regional director of learning solutions as a consultant for us in the Sydney office. And Claire, normally Anne is filling the seat, but great to have you back on Called to Coach. Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. It's always nice to be here, Jim. Thank you. I'm really excited today because I get to interview a good friend of mine and somebody that I've really enjoyed partnering with, Marianne Hogan. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Marianne. She leads the people and culture team at Macquarie Telecom Group. Welcome, Marianne.
Thank you.
I'm excited about this discussion because this partnership has really evolved and sped up to a crescendo this year in 2019, and you've really rolled out a strengths-based approach and embedded it at all the levels in the organisation. At the same time, you're measuring it and you're measuring the impact of this change. So we've got lots to talk about. I'm going to be asking you lots of things about, how you got that executive level buy-in, what that roadmap looks like, what some of the challenges and learnings you face when you're rolling it out, how you actually brought it to life beyond HR, beyond people and culture, and thought about how to embed it, and lots of other great things. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Me too.
Good. So let me just formally introduce you and Macquarie Telecom Group, and then we'll kick things off. So starting with Macquarie Telecom Group, and I'm going to read this out. Macquarie Telecom Group is Australia's leading data centre, cloud, cybersecurity and telecom company for mid to large businesses and government clients. The Australian company has enjoyed 5 years of successful, strong growth, is always looking to hire the best local talent to join its business. One of the things that I love about partnering with Macquarie Telecom Group is just the real commitment from the leadership to people and performance. And I love that little line that you have around being technically literate and enthusiastically human. Tell us more about what that means.
That's one of our core, I think, brand or who we are as a business. And about 3 or 4 years ago, the organisation went on a little bit of a journey to look at who we are as a business, how do we present ourselves, and what's the unique proposition that we bring to our clients. And so everything we do, how we interact with our customers, the way we build our communications is all, we know the tech, but we're people. And that also then translates internally to our people are our everything.
That's wonderful. I love that. And I can definitely see that in all of your programs. Marianne, I'm going to introduce you if you allow me to. You've had a very varied and international career. So I'm just going to read a couple of key things. You're a senior people and culture manager. You head up Macquarie Telecom's people and culture and capability team, and you're very committed to providing world-class service to all of the staff within the company. You joined Macquarie Telecom Group in August 2016 and consider yourself a practitioner not a theorist.
Mhm.
I love that language there. I know you've had some experience working in different fields and internationally. And rather than read the rest of this,
Mhm.
I'm actually going to throw it over to you to tell us about your journey and maybe starting with your top 10 strengths.
All right. Thank you. What a journey. But let's start with those top 10 strengths. So, individualization, positivity, activator, self assurance, arranger, achiever, maximizer, learner, command, and responsibility. And I think probably if I look at how did I really get to learn what those meant and claiming it for myself, I decided to use the lens of washing over my career history. And it's, as you say, been a little bit varied. But what I really notice is self assurance in particular has come to life, and I can see how that plays out when I've chosen to travel abroad, to start a new career abroad, to move into sales in a country where I had no network and no previous experience in that uh, field. And so I can sort of see that playing out. I also see it happen when I chose to, 10 years later, chose to move back to Australia and threw my hat over the fence and thought, before I do, I'm going to qualify as a yacht master, a sailing instructor. I'd done very little sailing, but the self-assurance kicks in and goes, give it a go. You can do it. If you don't know how to, you'll find a way. And I can really see that come to life there. Activator really comes to life when I look at the breadth of all the different things that I've chosen to do to stretch myself. There's certainly a theme around people development, engagement that way, but the breadth is seen as the activation and starting pieces. And I think when I reflect on the toughest times in my career and personally, the positivity strength really plays out in building my resilience. So in some really tough times, I've been able to stand up and continue. And I think that's the positivity strength that kicks in. When I look at maybe some of the things that get in the way, and I know when under extreme pressure with command at number 9, that can play out probably a little bit more commandment or commander than when a strength is really helping you perform. And so I've got to be conscious of that. So it's a great way to learn how to understand what your strengths are, where your talents are at, and how to grow them. Is have a look at, particularly if your career history is longer, then that's a great way to understand them.
Very nice. I love how you can bring that to life through the lens of your strengths. I'd love to hear about how you found strengths, what your strengths journey looked like. And I know you've recently been certified as a Gallup certified strengths coach.
So I first started reading or hearing about strengths probably mid 2018. And as the journey to understand a little bit more about them came about, then my executive team, in particular the CEO, started talking about what is this? And so about 7 months ago, in fairly deep detail, I dove into how do I create the development activities we needed in the business and the engagement measures there. And that's when I and David Hope, the CEO, really started to explore what these are and sought external counsel as to who's worked with strengths, with Gallup, with the Q12. And for the last 7 months, most of my life has been really understanding more, building a program to roll that out, and personally being accredited. And it's certainly given a lens of common language for me to also understand myself that much better, which has just been brilliant.
Good. And so in terms of your own strengths, and when you first saw your strengths report, if you will, did that kind of make sense for your career journey? And
Yeah. So there are always little nuances where I go, maybe I don't want command. And how does that play out? But when you read the report, particularly the new format, is it is just so right. Even the parts where I go, I am really, really strong there, or I really have possibly a blind spot there, it's just right. And so I tested my thinking about that and shared it with my husband and my team and everyone who would read about it, and they just look and go, that's you, Marianne.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So I'm really excited to be able to ask you some questions about how you've embedded this. I know you've really championed this as a change program, and you've got the unwavering support of the CEO at the board and the executive team, which is incredible. And I know there's probably a lot of people who are listening that are wondering, how did you get that executive buy-in? How did you get started? So those are some of the things that I know we're all really excited to uncover. But as we kind of delve into that, if you could just share with us, what is the Macquarie Telecom Group story around strengths? What was the compelling why, and how did you get started with the vision to become a strengths-based performing culture?
Great question. And it's not a short journey. So I think that's part for everyone to be conscious of, is to get great buy-in and to have sponsorship at the most senior level. It's not a quick decision and done. So if I sort of reflect on what's happened 4 or 5 years ago, parts of our organization had different members of the team go through the Strength Finder survey and have their results. And that was interesting and it was insightful, and that's where it stopped. So in conversations in the last 12 months with our board and with the executive team, there's been a real focus around ensuring we understand how engaged our employees are, but also we need to do something which is really developmental, but sits within our technically literate, enthusiastically human lens, and isn't competing with the big end of town who have significant funds to throw at MBAs and different pieces there. So when we're looking for those two answers, how engaged are our employees and what do we need to do differently? And how do we develop them and our managers to be the very best they can be? That's when the world of Gallup, the Q12 and strengths really became apparent. So after working with the CEO, he'd had multiple conversations with our board, as had I. We explored what were they used to, where were they familiar or not familiar with these tools. We took the executive team to meet with peer organisations and competitor organisations in the Sydney workplace who have adopted Strengths program, looked at their results, looked at how they approached that, and then we built a solution. And that solution is using both of the tools of Strengths and Q12. The journey is, we're sort of 6 months into it. We have touched over 400 people in training them as to what their strengths are, their potential, their talents are, and how to grow that. And we've also taken our 60 plus managers through what does it mean? How do I invest in my people to grow their talents into strengths? So we're doing that piece. We have the lens of the individual, the manager teams, and also the organisation, and we're taking tact at all of those levels. But there's a ways to go, and that touches on that to start with.
No, that's good. And, I think that the thing that was really exciting for us when we began the partnership with Macquarie Telecom Group and yourself and David, the executive team, is that when you were doing your thinking around how to launch this and what that roadmap looked like, it really matched a lot of our research around the 7 strategies to creating a strengths-based culture. And you'd done all the thinking around, how do we kind of get it in at that top level, and then what does it look like at the front line? So a push and a pull strategy, which I love. So if you were thinking back on the journey and the getting started, how does an organisation get started with strengths. And when you were looking at getting that executive buy-in, that board buy-in, what were some of the barriers or the challenges you faced to get it over the line?
Core to adoption and achieving return on investment is having terrific sponsorship. And I think part of that is then ensuring that your decision makers, the CEO, the executive team, are the ones involved in that decision. It cannot live and be the people and culture thing. We don't touch enough people often enough to really influence that way. So having had the chairman be really comfortable with this process, and he's done his strengths profile with another organisation that he works very closely with, and then the executive having lots of conversations with them around why strengths, the positive lens that brings to developmental conversations is important. We also looked at the fact we're building a new performance approach. So the concept of performance coaching, regular conversations, as well as measurement of performance, this all goes hand in glove. So you need to look at not only the what you're using, the developmental lens, the how you're going to build that into the systems and the processes. And these are all part of the 7 process steps in embedding such a program. But then it's also ensuring that we get it outside of people and culture or the central function and owned and adopted by the business units. So we have a lens that is every executive and their business units, and some are 50 people, some are several hundred people, are adopting their own action planning, their own infrastructure to embed strengths. And that's underpinned by the central program. So the central program is a 6-stage journey. Myself, me as the manager, me as the leader of the team, the business unit approach at the executive level. We also have in place there what we call our cohort or induction program. So beyond the launch, we have an approach that ensures every new person that joins our business within their first 60 to 70 days will have done the survey, will have participated in an intensive day around our organizational values, and also what strengths means for them, how to use those to grow and be successful in the business. When I look back and go, what were the things I could have learned? You can never ask enough questions. When you're new to a tool like this, there are so many people in the market, practitioners, Gallup, partners at Gallup, where you need to really understand what are the limitations, what are the system implications, what's it going to take time-wise, and that will have you make the right choices or the best choices you can for embedding something in your organization or your coaching practice. I have a business that is entrepreneurial, innovative, moves at pace, competes with the big end of town. You know, we're a 500, less than 500 person business, and our significant competitors are global organizations or our leading telcos here. So for us to be successful in competing with them, we have to move at pace. So it's always balancing the journey of how quickly can we embed this program to how long does it take people to absorb and get on the journey so that they really understand this. And it's always weighing those two things up. So that's certainly been a learning, moving at pace that is enjoyed by our leadership community, and also is manageable for people to learn something very new about themselves.
And so I know when you're saying moving at pace, there's a lot of achievers, activators in your leadership team. And so when we think about the moving at pace, I know you and I were just reminiscing, when did the real rollout start? And Christmas Eve, I think we formalized the partnership. So and started in January, and we're now mid-May. So talk us through all of the prongs of your rollout and your roadmap, so we can almost reflect on what you've accomplished so far.
Sure. What a great Christmas present to Gallup and Macquarie Telecom Group. So we signed our 3-year agreement then. And then when we returned from Christmas break, we had already outlined how do we embed, how do we let every person go through the strengths tool, have their results, understand what that means for them. And so by mid-January, we'd confirmed a rollout plan, and that was cascade top-down, executive team with their session, senior leaders, managers, frontline staff. We'd mapped all that out, and obviously it was a perfect approach given that I'd structured it, and then reality hit. And so post 27th of February, when we launched formally with some of your Gallup team facilitating our senior leader program, we went, here's the feedback and here are some tweaks we need to do. So from around the 27th of February till yesterday, which is the 14th of May, we've delivered over 25 workshops, trained over 430 people in their staff lens, and also all people leaders have been through what does it mean, or how do I invest in my team? So what are the tools, the awesome simple tools that Gallup have that help us structure our conversations with teams? They've all been trained in that. So that, to me, the physical rollout has been basically 2.5 months.
Yeah,
and
right. Yep.
Yeehaw.
So that's the pace that you're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exhilarating and really good. And, walking around the halls of Macquarie Telecom Group, walking around the offices, what I love is that even though that rollout has been at pace,
Mhm.
a rapid rollout in terms of really launching it and getting that energy behind it, there is already some very clear hallmarks and symbols that it is truly embedded. I love walking past people's desk and seeing their top 5 on their name cards. I love some of the imagery of your staff that you have up around the office. And I think those kind of symbols really help create, artifacts of the
Yeah.
culture. And, maybe you can talk a little bit more about that onboarding program and how you
Mhm.
use strengths as a meet and greet tool and that initial attachment.
Mhm.
Mm.
The symbols are so important to creating climate and reminder. And we did have our internal expert in imagery design a strength finder symbol for us, which is on all our training material, communications, and it's really cool. Magnifying glass and then a dumbbell. So it's, the strengths that you're building, but you're looking at it intently. So it's sort of a subtle imagery to do that. So yes, we have the nameplates. We have people wearing their lanyards. We have nameplates from the course that has top 5 written on it. And we're seeing a whole variety of these all around the organisation. And we're embedding that also in our induction program. So when a new person joins our business, they have a 2-day induction program where our CEO invests 2 hours of his time to take them on the journey that has been our company for the last 26 odd years, what our values are, how we are focused on our customers and being leading in customer service with a net promoter score of plus 70. The focus is people. And so he then has morning tea with them, understands what the challenges may have been, whether they started today or whether they started a couple of weeks earlier. Then every executive team leader, every group executive speaks around their business. We have very important core messages shared at that induction. And one of the things that I share as the head of people and culture is around our values. And now I'm fortunate enough to be able to share with them the Gallup Strengths book, their survey link, and that we have this amazing development program that's focused on what you naturally do well and how you can grow that to just find life easier in the workplace and performance that much better. 60 days later, we have the cohort day. We're a tech company underpinning our telecommunications, our data center, our cybersecurity. So in that day, they do a deep dive with our CEO and group executive into our values. How does that be brought to life? They do a 2-hour deep dive with myself or one of my team in what's strengths, what does it mean for me, how do I claim my top 5? And then they go and do a really cool virtual reality activity because we're tech and that's fun. So that ensures no matter where we are in 3 years' time, everyone is still familiar with the common language that is strengths. They understand how to describe when you're behaving this way, that's your activator or your achiever really working powerfully well, or it's hindering you a little bit. So this common language, in the last 2.5 months, I go and make a cup of tea or sit in the breakout areas with the team, and people are just coming up to me and going, Marianne, I'm a, X, and it's so good because la la la, and it's just so great. They're able to really positively share what's going on, and they're doing that in their teams as well. There's a real buzz about it. So pace, although it brings challenge, it really does bring buzz and momentum, and it's just weighing those two things up.
Yeah,
Marianne, you kind of know what it's like to be Jim Collison at Gallup these days. If you're getting that kind of, when the employees come up and say, hey, they just start talking to you about this, it's pretty great when that happens here too.
It sure is.
Let me ask you this question. Roz in the chat room was asking, when you think about the workshops, and Claire, you can weigh in on this too. When you think about the workshops that you're doing, was that straight material from us? It sounds like you guys modified it in some way. What can you talk a little bit about what you're doing, and Claire, maybe the partnership we did with them around those?
So if I share first and then Claire, it is so based on partnership. So we ensured that we had our most senior leaders who have, so much experience. We had them trained and participate in Gallup's workshops. And that was so that they were really crisp and very accurate in their understanding of all things strengths. Then what I did and had many of my team do, we've become accredited in the strengths, so accredited coaches. And when you go through that program, I am blown away by the tools, by the support, by everything that's there that you can then go, here's what Gallup did, and here are the tools that I have. How do I apply my organization's lens over that? And given I've got 2 hours or I've got 6 hours or whatever it is, I can tweak that.
Claire, do you want to add anything to that?
I would just say that it really, I would echo Marianne's point. It's been a partnership. I think one of the things that I say in partnership is I think we've done a really good job if the organisation has built their own internal capabilities, and that's always our vision, is that this is alive with or without people from Gallup actually in there every day, and that's what this has been. So we've done a variety of CliftonStrengths discoveries. We've done creating an engaging workplace with the senior leaders. Those are 2 standard Gallup curriculums. We customise the curriculum really hand in hand with Macquarie Telecom Group, which was around performance coaching, using some of Gallup's coaching tools and coaching approaches, but through the lens of a system that was already embedded at Macquarie Telecom Group, which was their performance coaching system that they're all doing anyway. So that was a really good way to leverage what existed and what leaders were aware of. So it's been really fun.
Marianne, I think you mentioned this earlier. First introduction to CliftonStrengths then isn't during the onboarding process. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. So during induction, the formal introduction takes place there with the Discover Your Strengths book, and they're doing the top 5 survey, getting that top 5 report. All our managers actually participate and get the full 34 report. Over time, I have no doubt everyone will progress to having their full 34, but it's about having that razor sharp focus on the top 5 more generally at the moment, so we can get our biggest bang for our buck and have people just focus on a few things and then build on that over time.
And from a selection process, we have a individual selection tool that we have, or what do you guys use, or how does that process work?
Sure. So finding the best talent out there, we have, like many organizations, we have a series of interviews. We have actually built internally a series of culture interview questions to really find out whether someone's motivated in the style that we are as a business, and they align with all our values. We also use a tool with another provider that provides psychometric reporting and numerical, verbal, and critical reasoning tests. That's been used for about 14 or 15 years. And because of our legacy and the history that we have, the rich data that we have there, that's helping us in that process. It's very interesting. Many of our senior our leaders started to think that they might be able to use this tool, the CliftonStrengths tool, as a selection process. And we had to really get them to understand that this is a talent finder in reality. There's the potential there, but it's not testing or it's not providing results around how well developed those things are. So we've been able to have them step out of trying to do that and recognize, for us at the moment, this is a really strong development tool, and it's going to make the difference for the business long term that way.
I was really reminded of that today. All our interns started here at Gallup, summer internship season, and so all our college interns started. And I'm working with another manager who has a completely different set of themes than me. And she was doing some things I could have never done before in the past because of that setup. And if we had selected looking for a particular talent set on that, we would have all the same kinds of managers, which would not be healthy for the organization. And so, Marianne, just a great reminder. We've been getting that question a lot lately. I don't know why. Sometimes these questions kind of come up in Kathy had asked this in the chat room. These kind of questions come up. So thank you for clarifying that. Very, very helpful. Claire, let me send it back to you to continue the conversation.
Yeah, no worries. I think that's been one of the challenges that you've faced, Marianne, is really what it is and what it isn't. And I think every organisation obviously has at some point that conversation. Tell us a little bit more about some of the other challenges that you've faced. I think, you've got high positivity. The rollout has been really successful. The way the organisation has embraced it and the leaders have embraced it has been just really inspiring. But obviously there are challenges when you have any kind of change program. And I'd love to hear from you what they are, what some of the big ones are, and how you've thought to overcome them.
Having worked in big banks as well as an organisation of our size, I recognise that different businesses have different levels to be able to invest in these programs. And invest, I mean the dollars they can spend on external support, or how many people they have in a team to roll these things out. So in a 2.5 month process, and it's longer with the build phase, it's 4.5 months. We've had to stay very focused on just-in-time build of training materials and pieces that way. So I think that's really important to know that for someone with low adaptability, like myself, trying to get this all perfect and tied in a bow and then we'll release it would probably still be tying the bow at that point. So I really had to pull on others to help me be flexible and adaptable as we went, right, we need this done in the next 3 weeks, and we need that done in the 2 weeks after that. And that would be build a program, having absorbed what the coaching accreditation program was, having looked at that, and then go, I have 1 week to wrap together my 3 different curriculum that we're doing. I have an L&D background, so that's okay, I can manage that, but being willing to move that way at that pace and being adaptable to when things need to change, that's key. It's also listening for the differences in people's conversation. I think as a leader in an organization, we have our professional, our best results for the company lens in everything that we interact with, but there's still our personal views and opinions driven through our strengths lenses. So it's very important when you're rolling out a significant change program, and particularly one that's so fundamental to people, their strengths, their natural abilities, is to listen for the gold and listen for the change in people. Not only will they start to share with you new language, but listen beyond that so that you can see where people are successfully adopting change and where they may be challenged. I was, Claire, we were in an executive meeting with our team, and I'm not sure if you recall at the time, but one of the executive, with us having had that concern around we need to have achievers if we're going to get things done in this business, it's a good strength. One of the executive turned and went, I think we'd made an error in thinking that was it. You get execution done through a whole load of different strengths. So I heard him articulate a whole full view and correction of the impression of achiever being the only thing that gets things done. So listening to those things allows you then to choose, where do I need to direct my energy now to reinforce that, or to go where there's another blocker or another something in the way to help others get over, around, or under it. I think that's important to addressing the challenges of a change program.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that that full circle that you just described is happening now, and that each of the leaders in the executive have said, I think we want to roll this out with our team and do a unique team session, which we're starting tomorrow with all of the leaders and their direct reports. There are definitely two things. There's one about embracing that common language, and then there's one about the mindset of strengths. And you can see that learning journey that everybody is going on as they go from, doing the strengths to actually thinking about truly being strengths-based and being strengths-based leaders. And so it has been a privilege to partner with the executive team on that. One of the things I would say that this is one of those points where it wasn't in the original roadmap, but you added it in and you decided to pivot, is really honing and investing in coaching modality to bring strengths to life. And that was an area that you identified, okay, I think we need to have these coaching skills and bring them back to the forefront, because that modality really is the vehicle for strengths-based performance conversations. So maybe you can talk a bit more to that point.
Sure. So like many people who are interested in strengths, either as an HR professional or as a consultant around development, I come from a background in organizational development, so coaching, qualified, and different pieces that way. And we all know that it takes time and it takes a great deal of patience and practice to build exceptional coaching skills. And I think sometimes we think, you're a manager, we've given you a 2-day course in coaching, why aren't you doing that with your people? And so in addressing that, and rather than getting caught up in what could be the piece, which is they're bad and wrong, they're not doing it, and we know good managers should, is going, how do I make it really easy for them to have coaching styled conversations focused on the development of people? And that's the joy of looking to the tools provided through the coaching accreditation and our partnership, is there are some really simple tools that a manager can use on their own with a team member. The Best of Us, Help or Hinder, Appreciating Strengths or Talents, the Investment Circle, all of those tools are really simple for a manager to sit down with their team member or teams and have those conversations. So, in running a workshop all day yesterday, which was refreshing how to invest in the development of managers, in the development of my people yesterday with our managers, it was, I can coach you on how to be a better coach. I actually want to coach you on how to use these tools that makes having coaching styled conversations really easily. They loved it. The feedback is, this is so simple, I can use this with my team, and some of them already have. So I feel incredibly privileged to be able to step out of not trying to make managers do things a certain way, do it the coaching way, but to make it really simple for them to reflect that and easily with these great tools that still cause fabulous outcomes.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, and for naming some of those tools as well, because I think that is a conundrum. That's a bit of a challenge that a lot of organisations are facing. Is, you know, we've heard about this need to shift from boss to coach, but how? And so, yes, as you said, the coaching skills take a longer time to develop. If we could give somebody some tools that allows them to have coaching style conversations within a framework, gee, that really is helpful. Thanks for reminding me of that. Yeah.
It's interesting. The other piece actually that I just wanted to reflect on is when you've taken us through one of the programs previously, part of the Gallup recommendation around the conversations, the cadence of conversations to have with your people, and in particular when that links with the engagement survey, you know, starting with, I know what I need to do here, my goals and objectives. And you have I think it's a 5-step model, which is of the different conversations. So setting objectives, the short check-ins, the performance one-to-one the performance coaching, and then the more formal review. And we'd already implemented a similar approach across our business. So for the last 2.5 years, I've had a 10-minute stand-up at the start of every day with the team that are in the office. Any blockers? How do we help that? How do we get around it? So there are really simple practices that come from that guidance. And I think core to it is focus on the what we're delivering is in one conversation a manager has, and the focus on the how or the strengths or the behaviors in the other conversation. And that's the one that we're sort of going is the strengths development based conversation where you practice formally. The rest, it will all flood across as people build their skill set. But it just makes it simple.
Yeah, very nice. And you're referring to the 5 key conversations that drive performance. So, yeah, thank you for that. Jim, I can see you leaning towards the mic. You've got something on the tip of your tongue.
Well, one of the things I want to say is, you know, I have 2 different resources here that I work with. That one requires a daily stand-up. He does. I meet with him every morning. We do 5 minutes setting priorities. We're in and out and we're done. I have another one who I never meet with, to be honest. She's fine. She does what she needs to do. We don't have to have those kinds of conversations. And so I appreciate when you look at this, I think too, there's not just practicing the disciplines of it, but practicing the ability to slip in and out of it based on the resources that are available there. And you may have teams that way as you're looking at, you may have high maintenance teams where we need a weekly stand up. And if we miss it, things get dropped. Right. And we have other teams that they work great without that kind of feedback. So, Roz had asked in the question to you, Marianne, where do you see your strengths, or where do you see the organization in 12 months from now?
It's an interesting question. I did reflect on that. They will be exceptional. I have no doubt about that. There will be a language used that is strengths-based across the whole business, because I'm already seeing that happen. And part of that has to be answered at the end of this month. We get our first employee engagement survey, the Q12 survey results back. So it's our way of measuring how effective we've been in growing the capability of our managers to develop their teams in a strengths-based style. So I have no doubt we'll set some goals and action plans to address the one or two things that will really make a difference over the next 12 months. And so our results will have lifted employee engagement. We will be on the journey, if not very closely, to being a world's best employer. We're so far down that path already. That's where I see us.
Exciting to get that first report back, because it sets a kind of, it level sets, creates a data dimension that beyond strengths, right, begins to start to measure some of those pieces. And really the second one I think is great as well. So as you think about, I mean, the first one's great. The second one is incredible because now you have two data points, right? One's a point, two's a line, three's a trend. And so as you start working those data points, that's some pretty incredible stuff. So we'll be excited to kind of track and follow and see how things go and start working with you. It's exciting times when you pull all these pieces together. Today in a meeting, we asked the last year's interns, like, hey, if you were going to tell this group, and they were sitting right in front of the new ones, what would you say? They said, oh, one thing, make sure you memorize your top 5. That was the feedback. So if you ever wonder, best practices in an organization and what interns tell each other, make sure you memorize that top 5, because we say it here in our organization, and you'll be that way or are that way now, right? Where you pop into it. And I can't tell you how many meetings I'm in, and I'll talk to somebody and say, all right, tell me your top 5 again. And, and you begin that conversation kind of working through those themes. Claire, I think even though we started a little late, we're kind of coming in for a landing here. Any final thoughts from you?
Yes, I'm really excited to see your Q12 results, Marianne. I know you finished with a really high response rate, 79%. So that's very good. Very well done. If anybody wants to hear more from Marianne, she will be speaking at our Transforming Workplace Culture event in Sydney. We have 15 different leaders talking about how they've actually transform their workplace, or they're on the journey to do so, to disrupt traditional management practices and do things a little bit differently. So I'm looking forward to that. That's on the 7th of August in Sydney. I just wanted to thank you for your partnership, for all of the investment of time and energy and love that you and the executive team have put into this program. And really, that tagline about technically literate and enthusiastically human is just really resonates. I'm sure you'd be happy for people to reach out to you, Marianne. How would they get in touch with you if they had any questions or wanted to pick your brains even more?
So LinkedIn is probably the best way. It's Marianne Hogan at Macquarie Telecom Group. Go straight there. I use that well, and I would welcome any questions. I think the greater the community and the more sharing of ideas has us all been more effective. And I've really appreciated working with Gallup. If I leave one final hint to everyone, do not underestimate the importance of having the experts at critical conversations. And that's where Claire and her team have certainly been able to help me influence and drive outcomes with this program. And I really look forward to that continuing.
Thank you so much. Jim, anything from you?
Well, we'll remind everyone with that. You guys hang tight for 1 second. We'll remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strengths Center, just gallupstrengthscenter.com. Send us your questions or comments. You can send those to us in an email, coaching@gallup.com. We'll get right back to you on those as well. If you haven't started listening to this on your phone via podcast app, both iPhone and Android have their own dedicated apps. Just go into those and search Gallup Webcast, and you can see any of the number of webcasts that we have available, including a pretty awesome theme Thursday that we get some great feedback on. If you like this talking about themes, we've been talking about it here, you might like that one as well. Just search in either store, get those downloaded, subscribe to them so you get them on a regular basis, or you can get some instructions on how to do that out at the coach's blog, coaching courses.gallup.com. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach, you can see a list of all the courses that lead to certification off our courses page, courses.gallup.com. Claire, do we have anything coming up in Australia that you want to talk about as far as coaching goes?
We do. We've got the Accelerated Strengths Coaching Program on the week of the 3rd of June, but it is sold out. So if you're interested, you'll have to join our September class at this point.
Waiting list or anything? Can people get on? Can they pay extra to?
If they've got lots of influencing themes, we might be able to create an extra seat. No, do get in touch with us if you're interested. We have lots of options.
All right, sounds good. If you enjoyed this webcast, and I really enjoyed it tonight because for the first time in a long time, we've been live in Australia and we've had tons of people in the chat room. So I appreciate you coming out live. That has been very, very awesome and supporting it. If you want to see a list of all the webcasts that we do, when they're live and what time they're live, head out to our Eventbrite page. Just go to gallup.eventbrite.com. We are partying here in Omaha June 3rd, 4th, and 5th for the CliftonStrengths Summit. You should join us. It's not too late, although getting tickets from Australia in 3 weeks might be kind of tough, but we'd love to have you join us here June 3rd, 4th, and 5th. More information, CliftonStrengthsSummit.com. Thanks for coming out. We'd invite you to the next one of these. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.